Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Nick is here in attendance with me once more because today we're going to be going through our NXT recap from this week. This was the 5th of August edition of NXT. So let's go into the show, break everything down, and discuss everything that took place across the course of the night. So, we would open the show with the glamorous one, Blake Monroe. She would come on down to the ring ready for her upcoming one-on-one match against Kalani Jordan off the heels of last week's conversation with Kalani. As the match was going along, pretty much as you expect, very back and forth, both women sort of showcasing what they're capable of. Quite a fun contest to begin the show as well. It got to a point where Blake Monroe starting to take control. She's looking to really sort of like put Kalani away. And then we hear the music of Jordan Grace. And unlike last week, where it would be like Kalani Jordan coming down to Jordan Grace's music, it would actually be Jordan Grace. She would come on down. She has like a neck brace on. Obviously, still suffering from the effects of the DDT onto the chair from a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, as she would storm down to the ring, Blake Monroe looking like she's seen a ghost, and she would hightail it out of there. She would get out there as fast as possible. She would run straight through the back stage area and straight out the door into the parking lot, which is absolutely tipping it down at this point, by the way. It's raining like crazy. And she just goes straight into a car that's waiting for outside, gets into the car, and they just drive off. This is during the match. The match is still happening. The match isn't over at this point. Jordan Grace is chasing her away and gets to a point where we go back to the arena, back into the ring, and you just see the referee counting up the 10. Kalani Jordan wins by count out. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a a flat feeling finish, but I guess quite comical the fact that she literally just ran away. Like, legit, the definition of running away. Like, she couldn't have got any further away. She literally left the arena via that car, and she's out of there. So yeah, quite a comical opener here. The match was going pretty well up until that point, and yeah, Jordan Grace, even with a neck brace on, looking very aggressive and threatening towards Blake Monroe. So Blake's first official singles loss since coming to NXT, but obviously wasn't pinned or submitted. So I guess they'll probably use that as the sort of description of that going forward. We then go into a tag team match next for the NXT Tag Team Championships. This would see Hank and Tank put their gold on the line against KO Dixon and Uriah Connors of the Chase U 2.0, whatever I call them now, the reunited Chase U, the new Chase U. And this would be a pretty fast-paced start. Like, as soon as the contest would begin, Chase U would look to just completely go after Hank and Tank, isolating one of the members, and just completely just just untethered, just going straight after them and taking down them straight away as fast as they really, really can. It wasn't enough because they would kick out and they would keep the match flowing. And then as the match was go along, Hank Attack would sort of like turn things back around, and they would eventually tip the scales back in their favor. They would hit the finish, not once, but twice, because I think the first time they botched it, I think the shoulder was like slightly up, apparently, according to the referee. So they basically just repeated the exact same finish, kind of similar to how we saw in earlier on in the year with Obafemi and Jasper Troy, actually. Very similar instance there. But yeah, we had a repeat of the finish. This time it would be the 1-2-3, and Hank Tank would defend their championship successfully. After the contest, we would have Dark State. They would make their presence known, and they would look to just storm the ring to take out Hank and Tank. Dark State just been appearing every now and then, and it's a bit of running theme really on NXT. But it looks like they are really targeting the tag team champions. I think it's the second time recently they've done this, so possibly the gold is in their sights. And that's what they're really focused on, trying to get sooner rather than later. Our next match of the night would be a one-on-one contest. Miles Bourne going one-on-one with Lexus King. Just off the back of Lexus, just not really believing that Miles is actually deaf. Or I think it's 90% deaf, I think he is, according to what he said a few weeks ago. But either way, regardless, Lexus King sort of playing it down. He's convinced himself that Miles is a liar. He's not telling the truth, and he actually can hear, exactly as well as everybody else can. Yeah, just crazy stuff from Lexus King. But Miles Bourne and Lexus Bourne, quite a fun matchup here. There's a point where Miles's head was sort of like on the steel steps, and Lexus would stomp his foot against Miles's head onto the steps. So that was quite vicious intent there from King. But in the end, it would be Miles Bourne who would turn things around eventually, and he would secure the victory over Lexus King. So yeah, decent match, one-on-one between the two men. Not really too much to say about it, but Miles getting one over Lexus after the few weeks of sort of like mind games. And then we would have Nia Jax. She came to NXT last week to take out Last Legend during her one-on-one match with Fallon Henley, and it looks like Nia Jax wasn't quite done in NXT. She would have a one-on-one match with Tia Hale. Tia's shown this like new like attitude as of the last few months and trying to stand up for herself. You know, she is a grown-ass woman now. That's her gimmick. Yeah, she would bring the fight tonight. To be fair, very competitive. Thea sort of like fighting from underneath for a large part of it, but like really sort of like hanging in there for the most part of it. It got to a point in the end though when Nia Jax would overpower Thea Hale, and eventually she would get the victory over her by hitting the Annihilator. But it was more about what happened afterwards because Nia would be interviewed in the ring, saying how dominant she is. That every time she steps in a ring, she is as dominant as she can be. But Last Legend, she will come on down to confront Nia Jax. Lash has a mic. I don't know why she had the mic because she literally started speaking, and then before she could even finish her own sentence, she decided to stop speaking, and just to storm in and charge down Nia Jax. So quite a funny thing there. But the brawl would start here, and this brawl would literally go on until the very end of the show. More about that later on. But we would see sort of progressive, backstage segments where Nia and Lash would be involved at several points across the evening, just continuing this brawl. So yeah, very very aggressive between both women and very heated for sure. Nick, what did you make of our first half of NXT? Kalani and Blake, with that epic run away from Monroe, get away from Jordan. Hank and Tan defending their tag team championship successfully. Probably doesn't come to any real surprise there. Miles Bourne defeating Lexus King after fighting through some adversity, and then Nia Jax defeating Tia Hale, and then starting that big brawl with Last Legend.
Yeah, the Blake Monroe, Kalani Jordan match I kind of had high hopes for, but I'm okay with this. Obviously, it further progresses the Blake and Jordan story, and Blake clearly had an exit plan, executed that quite flawlessly. And then to go back to see Kalani in the ring, very unimpressed with her own victory, but didn't get a loss. And you could argue that Blake really didn't either. So keeping both women safe here leads me to believe that they both are being protected for good reasons. Moving on to the Hank and Tank match versus Chase U 2.0. I like that name. Yeah, this was very hard hitting. You see Hank and Tank, and you would never think that their matches are kind of quick paced the way they are, but this very much was just that. And I feel like that kind of plays into Hank and Tank's wheelhouse. And after them winning, getting ambushed by Dark State yet again. And at this point in the night, I had kind of thought similar to you. I thought clearly Chase U is after the tag division now. That's where they kind of set their sights on. And you can very much argue that the tag division in NXT right now is a bit shallow. So it made sense. But then we see them appear again, later on in the night. So maybe not. It's hard to tell with them, but for me, it does make most sense for them to start with the tag division and kind of move up from there if they deem necessary. The Miles Bourne Lexus King match, yeah, that spot on the chair, that was pretty brutal, but it wasn't quite enough. Miles hits the Bourne again to take out and get the win over Lexus King. But yeah, Lexus King's work, comedic timing is great. You see in the picture there, grabbing his ear. And then during the match, he says, "I know you can hear me." So obviously that had to have been approved by Miles, I would assume. So I think it makes it that much more funny to be able to, take advantage of that and play on to it. It is great. And I think Miles clearly moving ahead. He's racking up those wins. Will Lexus take the loss and move on? I highly doubt it, but we'll have to wait and see. And then the Thea Hale Nia Jax match, yeah, clear that Nia Jax was never going to lose that one. But as you mentioned, Thea did show some resiliency, and her I think it was on Instagram that they showed on air the promo saying, I don't like Nia the way she thinks she can come in here and kind of run the division. She's entertaining as well. Thea Hale, she has that comedic timing, but I'm not sure what else beyond that. But yeah, tries to stick up to Nia, but obviously Nia is here to remind everyone that she is a force to be taken, not to be taken lightly. And then Lash Legend coming in, I kind of like the bit with the mic simply because she had something to say, but couldn't quite get it out because she was just that upset with Nia. So yeah, clearly the brawl very personal, as you mentioned, seeing that throughout the night. But yeah, pretty good first half to NXT for me. Lots of development and clearly things still moving forward. So just like we mentioned on Raw this week, that's what we want to see at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we always sing off the same hymn sheet there. It seems to be the way that NXT sort of do things, and naturally that's just how we like it. So yeah, just not really much I can sort of say regarding that. But how about we continue on with the rest of the show? So first and foremost, we go into our next segment, which would be Obafemi coming on down to the ring. He would basically start to say like how he's still waiting on someone to step up to him and prove they're worthy of facing him and taking his NXT championship. Weird to have a champion sort of wanting someone to like prove their worth and to actually, be a threat to take the title. But I guess Oba is a man of he is a man of honor. He is the ruler at the end of the day. So I guess it does fit his demeanor. He basically say that it doesn't actually matter who is next because although the names change, the results stay the same. Quite a cold line, to be fair. I quite like that from Obafemi. Moments after he would say things like this, Trick Williams would come on down in order to confront Oba, basically saying that he's the guy that's going to take that NXT title from him. Femi looks back to their match in the past, highlighting that Trick has actually never beaten Obafemi. Before Trick would basically acknowledge that and then say, you know what, Oba, yeah, you're right, but actually I'm different. I'm not the guy that you beat back then. I've changed completely since then. We wouldn't be too long later before Javon Evans would come on down to the ring. He would basically go on to say that he's also aiming for the NXT title, kind of similar to how we've already had an interaction between Trick and Javon recently. But it would sort of go to a bit more than that because after a bit of back and forth, we'd have Javon Evans basically saying that, Obafemi's the big dog around here and he wants to challenge Trick Williams to a match where the winner will face Obafemi for that NXT championship. Obafemi likes the idea. He basically goes on to say, how this should happen tonight. But Trick denies it very, very quickly, saying that now we should have it in 2 weeks' time instead. In Philadelphia, I think he said. He mentioned, Philadelphia being very familiar with champions. I'm assuming referring to the Super Bowl this past year. Shortly after all this is going on, we would have Moose from TNA come on down and basically just insert himself in the conversation. But instead of focusing on the NXT Championship, he focuses more on Trick Williams, and he would look ahead to their match coming up very soon before basically saying how sooner or later he will be taking the the TNA World Championship away from Trick Williams. Once this whole thing sort of settles down a little bit, we then once again have Dark State come on down. They would charge the ring, resulting in Obafemi, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Moose all fending off Dark State in order to sort of stand tall at the end of the segment, with Dark State basically being held back in order to not be able to get into the ring once again. So yeah, the four men sort of working together there at the very end of the segment just to keep Dark State at bay. Quite interesting for sure, and we would actually get later on the night Ava announcing that next week will be a 4 versus 4 match between obviously the likes of Obafemi, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Moose taking on Dark State. So this is the Dark State way. You have multiple people feuding over something very, very similar and getting in each other's conversations and faces, and then you insert Dark State, and then you have a tag match where the people who were involved don't like each other and they're facing Dark State. This is the third time it's happened this year. It might not even be the last time it happens this year, but this is the first time it's 4 versus 4. So there you go. I don't often criticize NXT, but this is a very running theme. We would then go into our next match of the show. This will be Channing Stacks Lorenzo, one-on-one with Yoshiki Inamura. Yoshiki off the back of, that very close call with the NXT Championship and the triple threat match with Josh Briggs. Channing Stacks, obviously he's going on for a business for himself now after, his saga with the family is now over. This match was decent enough to begin with and going along quite smoothly. We get to a point where Ariana Grace would come on down to ringside, just sort of like getting up in the face of both Yoshiki and Amura especially, providing some sort of distraction. The referee sort of comes on down so you see what's going on, leaving Yoshiki to get back into the ring. The referee comes on down to assess the situation. With Channing Stacks sort of against the steel steps. Ariana Grace would give a slap to the face to Yoshiki. Referee's basically trying to separate the two from that situation. Yoshiki quickly gets back into the ring. And as Ariana's providing a distraction to the referee, we get Josh Briggs come on into the ring, taking out Yoshiki Inamura, which would lead to Stacks picking up the victory in this matchup. So officially, Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura are done. That NXT Championship came between the two like an absolute wedge. And that partnership is now officially over. So now we see probably them two going at it down the line, I would assume, one-on-one. But for now, Channing Stacks Lorenzo with a win. The next segment of the night would be a pretty funny one, I'm not going to lie, and it involves Ethan Page, the NXT North American champion. He would look back on his match with Santino Marella last week, before basically looking back on the greatest Canadians of all time. He would announce himself as the greatest Canadian ever, before wishing to celebrate his win last week. He would attempt to sing the Canadian national anthem before Tavion Heights would interrupt him, formerly of the No Quarter Catch crew, after his victory last week over Charlie Dempsey, which means that he is now away from the group. Tavion would basically say that Page sounds like a Canadian goose dying, before looking back on his representation for Team USA at the Olympics. He'd say that Page needs to be knocked down a peg and that he's a weapon in human form. He decides to direct his pent-up aggression toward Ethan Page. He literally says this before getting shut down by the North American champion, basically ASAP. After a moment, Chelsea Green and the Secret Hervis arrive to basically start slandering Tavion Heights. She backs up Ethan Page, saying that he is the greatest North American champion ever. And once she gets in the ring with her Secret Hervis, she says that she actually came out to sing the national anthem. But Tavion, being the low-life American that he is, and that's Chelsea Green's words, he ruined it. Chelsea would get up in the face of Tavion, saying that he can't do anything to her. But Tavion would actually agree to that, but he would still manage to hit Ethan Page in the face, and that would be the segment over and done with. But yeah, quite a fun segment there between all those guys. It was, I'm loving everything that Ethan Page is involved in at the moment. He's just gold, to be fair, and it just seems everything he's doing is just terrific. And then in our final match of the night, our main event, we would have the NXT Women's North American Championship being on the line, being defended by Sol Ruka, one-on-one with Tatum Paxley. And to say this one wasn't chaotic would be a lie. It started off pretty well, actually. Very fun contest between both women, back and forth, and pretty much as you'd expect it from a title match to main event the show. It was going very, very smoothly and very, very well. Gets to a point where there's a little bit of mix. I guess it's not really a mix-up, but basically the culling here on the outside, I think it's Sean Spears, tries to insert the doll that Tatum Paxley obviously loves to have around with her into the ring to give to Tatum. Is he sort of like, no, don't do that? Like, I guessing like saying she doesn't need it, maybe. Just sort of still trying to piece that particular decision together from Izzy Dame. But basically, she says no to Sean Spears and tries to convince him not to. Regardless, the doll is left in the ring. So they're sort of arguing between themselves, and the doll is there. Tatum Paxley sees it. But whilst Tatum Paxley's going to the doll, we then have Lash Legend and Nia Jax in their latest installment of their brawl across the entirety of the evening. And they're still brawling around the ringside area now. And it gets to a point where, Lash puts Nia through the barricade in the corner, just sort of opposite where Tatum Paxley is just sort of getting back up to her feet after hitting a huge neck breaker off the top rope onto Sol Ruka. Tatum gets back up to her feet. I don't know if she's distracted by what's going on with Nia and Lash. I don't think she was. I think she's just recovering from the neck breaker. but also someone who's recovering was Soruka. She would get back up to her feet. She would hit a Soul Snatcher onto Tatum Paxley, and that would be enough to secure the victory and retain her NXT Women's North American Championship. Not saying that I think Soruka should have lost here because I'm enjoying her reign, but I think this would have been quite a cool decision to have actually put the strap on to Tatum Paxley. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think about that, Nick, because obviously, big fan of Soruka. I know you are, and I love a bit of Soruka too. But I think this could have been quite the moment for Tatum Paxley. I think it would have been a pretty cool spot. But yeah, we'd love to hear your opinion on that. But certainly not a bad decision. I'm like I say, I'm liking the Soruka reign, but that would have just been quite an interesting thing to end the show on for sure, especially in the main event as well. But yeah, Nia and Lash going crazy, getting involved, and I guess kind of getting involved, maybe providing a distraction, possibly, maybe not. See what you think about that. But yeah, second half of NXT, a whole lot went down, lots to talk about. What did you make of it all? We got Overfemi, Trick, Javon, Moose in that whole segment with Dark State towards the end. Channing Sax Lorenzo getting the win over Inamura. Ethan Page, Tavion Heights, Secret Hervis, all that crazy stuff, and then Soruka, Tatum Paxley in that main event.
Yeah, I thought the promo between Oba, Trick, and Javon Moose and Dark State, I thought before Dark State got involved, I thought was really good. Oba clearly wanting to be a fighting champion, and Trick and Javon's work is always good. They have really good chemistry together, and then of course, excuse me, throwing in Moose in that pile, chaotic, but clearly, looking ahead to things to come. And yeah, kind of as I hit on the last slide, it felt like Dark State was going after the tag division, but then shortly after that, being involved in the four of the biggest men's side, if you will. Pick a lane, I guess. It's kind of how I feel about that. Certainly, it seems like they're biting off more than they can chew, and this time, they got fended off, so it's kind of made them look a little dumb, honestly. But regardless, and the fact that Javon and Trick were saying, 2 weeks out, and Javon was like, "Why?" Well, then that kind of foreshadowed that Dark State bit because that was put on next week. A bit foreshadowed there, but regardless, the end result is the same. Channing Stacks, Lorenzo, and Yoshiki Inamura. Yeah, that was a pretty hard-hitting contest. Unfortunately, ending early with Briggs getting involved as well as Ariana Grace. Very interesting dynamic between Ariana Grace and Channing Stacks, Lorenzo. But yeah, clearly the Briggs and Inamura feud now is far from over. I guess everyone can't be involved in the main title picture, so it'd be interesting to see where that goes. Hopefully Inamura comes out on top, but it feels like Inamura was shooting straight up to the top, and now kind of has to take a step back for a bit because there's just too much going on the men's side right now. So yeah, we'll see what comes of the Briggs and Inamura stuff, and Stacks. An alliance with Ariana Grace, that could prove very interesting. The Ethan Page promo, as you kind of hit on, everything he does turns into gold. So what do? You bring in someone else who's very over, and everything that she does turns into gold. Ethan Page and Chelsea Green, the combination I never knew I needed, but now I'm not sure I can ever go without it. Those two are just absolute gold. Everything they do turns to it. And the Tavion Heights getting involved there, maybe he's going after the North American title. I'd be okay with that. Clearly, having dismantled from the NQCC, not wasting any time, ambitions are high. So I think I do quite like Tavion. I think he has potential. So him in a match with Ethan Page would be a lot of fun, I think. And then the main event, Tatum Paxley, Soruka. Couple things you mentioned on this one. I think I wasn't quite sure what the angle is from the Coling and the doll in particular. I think clearly there's some friction between Tatum and Izzy, so I think that's kind of I think where that was supposed to go. And then I think with Tatum not winning, I'm sure that will come back into play. So yeah, I too would have been okay with Tatum winning. I think they keep pushing off the Zarya Soruka stuff. It feels like they'll hit on it and then they'll drop it for a bit. So I I always thought that would be the end of Soul's reign, but it appears that they're not quite ready for that for whatever reason. And one other bit, and you mentioned, yes, I am a big fan of Soul, but she had that slip up on the ropes, and that seems to be a more common occurrence lately. I think she either needs to nail that down or remove it from a moveset, because if that starts to happen too often, I'm afraid that's a very slippery slope and could potentially hurt her down the road in terms of what she's booked to do. So I know this is still NXT's, and mistakes happen, and even on the main roster, mistakes happen. But maybe either nail that one down, make sure you have it, maybe a surefire way to land it every time, or omit it altogether. But for the match itself, yeah, this was hard hitting and lots of back and forth. I think Tatum did a great job of proving that she does belong, in this title match, and obviously lots of interference was always going to come into play. But yeah, I did feel like I genuinely didn't know who was going to come out on top. I felt like Tatum had every right to do so, come out as your new North American champion. But Sol Ruca does end up retaining here, so we'll see if that Nia Jax / Legend coming into play. To kind of cause a distraction just enough for Sol Ruca to even the smallest window she does have the ability to take advantage of. So yeah, pretty good match. I'd argue the best of the night, and Sol Ruca retaining a North American title. Yeah, I'm not mad about that either. I think there's plenty of other people she can defend that up against if Tatum isn't the person to take it from her. Yeah, lots of stuff going on here at NXT. Very action packed. It felt like we wasted little time in between each segment. Even we had very much a ton of stuff to get through, and we did just that. So no complaints on my end. I gave this NXT an 8 out of 10. Yeah, really nothing to complain about. And now saying that out loud, I'll bump up to an 8.5. Just a ton of fun here in NXT, and tons of storylines and potential matchups set up. Of course, we have the NXT in Philadelphia in a couple weeks, and then I think 3.5 or 4 weeks from now we have NXT Heatwave, so starting to lay the groundwork for that as well. But yeah, overall a very entertaining NXT.
Yeah, you covered it well. I think you summarized it quite nicely there. It was a very entertaining NXT, and they just really are consistent. We say this every single week, and it just seems to be, they get things right. Whether that's just sort of like a more simplistic style, or whether it's just like they know what they're doing all the time, and it just seems to really come across that way. I don't know, but it's great. I'm still very much enjoying the shows that we're getting at the moment, and this is no exception to that as well. I gave it just actually a little bit less than you. I gave it an 8. Which is still obviously a very good show. Yeah, I just think that, in terms of everything that was taking place, like things were moving along really nicely. And actually, you know what? No, I changed my mind. I'm going to give it an 8.5, purely for the fact that although I do agree that, I do think that maybe nothing really groundbreaking did take place. I think a lot sort of position things to go forward into the next coming weeks. And yeah, there was nothing really that actually went bad in the show. So just that minor sort of thing with the whole Dark State, tag team thing that's going to be prepped for next week and whatever. That's like my only really sort of thing I have to say that's like kind of negative about it, but still not really necessarily a bad thing. But everything's moving forward nicely, which we like to see, which is great. And yeah, lots of interesting things going along, stories being told, and yeah, definitely some questions still need to be answered, which is always what you want. You don't want to know everything; you want to be kept wanting a bit more. So regarding our recap of NXT, guys, that is everything that we have to say here that we need to discuss. So thank you very much for tuning in to the push with Nick and KP. Please consider hitting a like on our video if you enjoy what we're putting out here, and consider subscribing to our channel to keep up with future content coming out in the future as well. Please leave a comment as well, letting us know what you thought of this episode of NXT, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, anything you want to say regarding what happened. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But for now, this has been an episode of The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody, and see you next time.